outside again. I came for the M's, I came for the win. Yeah, me and all my friends. It's a 4th century, man, we all going in. Big bro, I rock told. Better use what you got, get what you want. Swear to God, since that day, I've been cooking it back, trying to make this shit grow.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Beezy Show. Very, very cool episode today. We have someone that's on the film side. As you guys know, a lot of the guests prior have been like a lot of the music industry side. Today's one of those ones where we get to go into the film side, which I'm very, very excited for. We have today story development producer for film and TV, Emilio Martinez. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Good to see you.
How you doing today, man?
Good to be here, Beezy.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. So like I was saying, this is like one of the first, film guests we get to have on today.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because just to give you a little bit more background, like I've mostly just been in the music side most of my life, artists, songwriting, all that kind of stuff. And then throughout the time, I made a pivot into like content.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just go ahead and,
Well, you got to. We live in the YouTube age.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I, and not even just that, because I think there was like, when I was still doing music, I had met a few people, like, pretty core people that have like pretty good networks in the music industry. And I was still doing my artistry. I was working at a studio in Atlanta, but basically they were just like, well, you kind of have a choice. Like, you're here with us now. We're doing a lot of things at the studio. You can either still be an artist and do all that, but you have to go into like a songwriting lane and like collaborate with artists, or you can pivot and do something else. So it was weird because I still wanted to do music.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know, like there's like no money in it. You know what I mean? Like, especially in the beginning phase where you're just like an artist, you're just doing content. It's like there's $0 unless you got lucky and got a song that like kind of went a little bit. Maybe there's some revenue there, but so I guess that's what they were trying to tell me was like, you're part of a team now here, so you have to figure out a way to bring money to the situation. So I'm like,
right, I see.
As a songwriter, as an artist, I was like, damn, that's gonna be pretty impossible. So the one thing I have always done though, and I guess this was like just in my journey of music, which I didn't even really put 2 and 2 together until like things started to kind of click. But like I've always done content for myself, but I never saw it like that. I was just like, I'm a music guy. I'm just gonna put some stuff online to like push my songs. And then that's when I made the decision to be like, oh, I guess I could pick up a camera and like help other artists get content and like, we can, use this as like a services package for people and like, sell them stuff. And so that's where it all kind of shifted for me.
I see. So you actually stepped into more of a producer.
Basically. Kind of the similar role as you,
Yeah, I hear you because I started out in comedy.
Oh, there you go.
And I started doing improv and everything.
Nice.
And as time went on, I liked to organize things.
Yeah.
So, I liked like meta structures and thinking big and, other people were just willing to climb up climb over their grandmother to make sure they could get,
a role, a position,
exactly.
anything.
Hit that, swing for the fences, hit that home run,
for sure.
And, no, and I was always thinking like of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Why? It's like, why would you think of infrastructure if you're an artist? And,
right.
Well, part of it is I cared about the collective. I wanted to do something practical.
Yeah.
I wanted to I wanted to change culture. That was a big thing. I didn't want to just be like a person who just had a name.
Right.
And fans. I would love that. I wouldn't mind that, like having to tell the paparazzi, could you just take like a break?
Take a second.
I'm in the bathroom. Could you just like step out for a second?
I'm about to do the podcast. Let me get a break here.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm just so I'm culturally minded and I'm socially minded.
Yeah.
So when you have that, you got to be like. Mm-hmm. And then I had a family,
right?
And now you got to think more practically. You can't be like,
trying to do it for the wrong reasons, or just do it for like more selfish reasons, I guess. Because I think there's a lot too with this, music and film too, where it's like you have to give it like everything you've got, sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to sacrifice a lot, So then through like the music journey and I got into content. And I've noticed that recently in the pods, I've been kind of giving my trajectory and stuff from like where I first started. So I'm going to make it short and sweet. But basically, I left California as a young kid, moved to Florida, grew up there my whole life, came back to California. I was in Atlanta for a few years and then I came back to California. You know, through that shift, eventually when I came back to California, I had a buddy in Atlanta and I asked him, I said, hey, if you have any people like in the music side in LA or whatever that need help or need content, like I need some clients.
Right.
Because I'm not doing very well right now. So I need some help. So then that's when he introduced me to B-Star.
B-Star.
So, you know.
By the way, I didn't realize he had a whole like double life.
Oh, yeah.
I know him as.
I know. See, that part we might have to cut out, though. The whole actual name part, we might have to cut out.
Well, this is called B-Star. Just kind of bleep that out. Whenever I said
B-Star.
Whenever I said, just, you know, luckily it's a lip sync
just
match.
B-Star.
B-Star.
Yeah, exactly. B-Star. It could work. It could work.
So just cut it in.
It could work.
There.
And that's basically, so this is the crazy part. So I'd like to.
See, I'm always thinking like a producer now.
Exactly.
Like, oh man, he said the thing. That's all right. We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. That's
it's an easy fix.
That's what everyone in the film industry loves to say. But then you get to post and you're like, we messed up. We needed to get, you know.
Well, there's always
really messed up.
There's always the pickup shot.
Yeah, exactly. So when I came back, you know, long story, like basically, he introduced me to him. He said, hey, this is a buddy of mine, link up with him. And what I've noticed on that, you know, trajectory of like creating content for artists specifically, I would, you know, stick with a bunch of, I've worked with a bunch of artists. You stick with them for like, you know, 4 or 5 months, 6 months, whatever. You get, you know, you kind of, you know, help them out, get their feet under them and start to create content. But normally what I've noticed is, depending on the artist, usually after a certain amount of time, it's like, all right, see you later. Like, appreciate it. You've helped us build our infrastructure. We got it. We'll get our own video guy. We don't, you know, which is fine. It's cool as long as that, you know, can help get them started and obviously get paid, you know, on what I did, which is fine. But with B-Star, it was different because he's one of those ones where I met him in 21, 22, around there. And, you know, we're still here. You know what I mean? So he's one of those ones that like stuck around and said, you know, I did help him with a lot of his content as an artist, but then it turned into like, how about we make content for people and let's get into some cool stuff. And then, you know, once we did that, then we're like, oh, why don't we just, I made a decision to be like, I don't want to be a client, like, I don't want you to be my client anymore. We should partner together and let's make something happen, you know, because then I found out about him and, you know, his film knowledge of, you know, going to film school and stuff. And I didn't even know that. I thought he was just an artist. He's like, no, actually, I do content as well. I just needed some help right now to like get started. So I'm glad that you're here. Let's team up. We did. And then, you know, 4 years later, I mean, we're still.
Yeah, well, I always find like it's a journey.
Yeah.
Wherever you know, like my son's a musician as well.
Oh, nice.
So, and when, you know, I saw that he had musical talent because when he was like 6, he got into a fight with a friend. And he wrote a song about it.
That's you know, he's a musician for sure.
I'm like, that's like 6-year-olds don't come home and deal with their emotional issues by going like, he's testing me, he's testing me, he's testing me.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, that's actually some really good insight into human relationships as well.
Yeah. And
so, you know, and it's funny because a lot of the people around him wanted him to be an engineer.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, he's good at math,
right?
You know, but I went to a science fair, where he was at his school. He was like at this really cool little charter school, and they had a nice little science fair. And his buddy did like a whole diorama setup with showing the differences between modern suspension bridges and classic arch bridges, you know, invented by the Romans. And he had built like these little small scale models that were actually functional. And then I looked over, you know, I had helped my son with his exhibit, and it was measuring different Mentos in dropping into different sodas. And when he was measuring it, he was just like, yeah, it's about 2 inches. I'm like, that's not how like the kid who made the bridge, he's like dealing with microns. because you know he's like trying to calculate because when you're building bridges, you don't want people to die.
Yeah, right.
But you know, but when you're writing songs, you know, you got 2 inches or something. You know, it's all about the poetry.
Right.
So that's what is
the exact
important.
science isn't really
the exact science isn't there. The poetry needs to be there.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, this kid just no, I don't want to be driving over the bridges that my son builds.
No.
I want to be listening to the music.
Yes.
That he makes.
For sure.
So that's a gift to the world. So yeah, exactly. I get it. But it's like my advice to him was always just get into the industry any way you can, because you don't know where it's going to lead. You know, you don't know where it's going to lead.
Right. I would actually, you know, like to hear your come up story of like, you know, where, you know, you started, you know, where, you know, things kind of shifted for you to say like, I would like to be in the film industry. You know, like what was that moment that you said, you know what, I'm definitely doing a film?
Well, first off, when you say the come up story, I go like, I don't feel like I've come up yet. But the truth is, I just became a member of the Producers Guild.
Nice,
Producers Guild of America.
Congrats.
That's a pretty good milestone.
Yeah.
You can't just like, you know,
walk your way in there.
You can't walk your way in there.
Yeah.
You have to have a member.
Right.
You have to have a member sponsor you. You have to get a number of people. You have to have the right credits, right? And you know, not everybody who's in the Producer Guild is Steven Spielberg.
Right.
But not everybody can get in the Producer Guild.
Right, for sure.
So when I reflect back on my life, I go like, okay, it's not where I want it to be.
Right.
But you're right. I made a lot of progress that I would not have made had I not pursued something. So so my come up story actually for me has been a lesson in perseverance. Right? Perseverance. Nice. Because I first came out to LA when I was 21.
Nice.
Right? Okay.
Nice.
I came out, I was doing stand-up. I was at the Groundlings. I performed with Bob Odenkirk and Andy Dick.
Wow.
You know, Second City. Lisa Kudrow and all those. So, you know, I was in that milieu of comedy. And then one day I just got really sick of it.
Yeah.
And said, I hate LA. It's an awful place. Really, I was just like many people who come out here, you know, sad, lonely, broke, frustrated.
Yep.
Sexually frustrated, you know. And then, and I just said, I hate this place. I'm going back home, right? So I go back home to Colorado, and, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do. But the next thing I knew, I got involved. Like I looked over, I was literally living in my mother's basement trying to figure out what to do. And I go, well, I got my bass here. I'll just start practicing my bass 6 hours a day. And the next thing you know, I'm in a band.
Wow.
And then I think I mentioned, you know, you just start thinking like globally. I don't know why I always think globally. I got to stop it a little bit. I've had to pull back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was thinking globally. And then I said, you know what? I'm running into these other bands here in Southern Colorado, and they are amazing. They've got a really great sound.
Yeah.
But they're undiscovered. And, you know, it's a really different kind of sound within the alternative music. Alternative music, you know, this is the 90s, so alternative music is blowing up.
For sure.
And I said, man, I'm going to collect these. I just started thinking like a record producer.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, I'm like putting a business plan together.
Wow.
And I just got sucked back in.
Yeah.
And then, but then I came up against a really hard reality. You can't start the music business in Southern Colorado.
Colorado, not happening.
Yeah. It's like trying to plant bananas there.
It's not gonna happen.
Go ahead. You better have like a really expensive greenhouse.
Right.
Yeah. But there's not going to be any kind of like grassroots.
Yeah.
There's no grassroots banana plantations in Southern Colorado.
No.
Right. So, I just was sick. And then I said, well, during that whole experience, I developed a personality theory because I was so deep into this like meta world of like culture and music and business and all these different disciplines coming together, that I just had this like metanoia about what is at the heart of a human personality. So I go back to school to study psychology because now I'm always trying to quit the biz.
Yeah. It's a drug, you're addicted.
It's like
you're
a drug.
addicted.
I don't know. Is it a drug or is it a passion? Is it a drug or is it a purpose? Is it a drug or is it a calling?
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
So anyway, so I go back to school. I'm going to go back to school for psychology. And when I get there, back to university, they're like, you have too many credits to really, you shouldn't go for a psychology degree. You just need to go finish your TV radio degree. Because I had dropped out of college to come to LA, right?
Wow.
And they said, go finish your college radio degree go finish your TV radio degree. And so I start doing that. And the next thing you know,
you're back in.
I'm a DJ.
All the way back in.
I got voted funniest DJ. Next thing you know, like the station manager there is like, and it was like one of the a really advanced college station. We were getting higher ratings than the other
like radio stations.
It was run like a real radio station.
Wow.
Yeah, because the guy who ran it, he was real serious.
Yeah.
He wasn't just like, go play some afternoon jazz. He was like, these are the playlists. This is what you have to do.
Right.
He'd call, like one day I was like reading some material on the air, like a script, and he called me up and said, that's a copyright infringement. Cut that out. Jeez. So this guy was serious, right? And then he was actually co-hosting a show with me where I'm always thinking like, infrastructure. And now I've got like a writing staff. Wow. I had a writing staff. We were writing skits.
Wow.
And then you
had free reins basically though too, right? Because he gave you like.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I had the whole show lineup. I had like one recurring thing called the Straight Mojo with Uncle Mojo.
Jeez.
Where we'd be like, yo, what's up, my brothers and sisters? This is the Straight Mojo with Uncle Mojo. And then there's a lot of political satire. Then I had like a whole slew of characters.
Nice.
I had this one character called Psycho Mouse that would kill people.
We
had this little fake sitcom called The Boomer and Boner Show.
Wow.
That we would, and I'd be writing these. So I'm working around the clock.
Yeah.
And I actually crack up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like working so hard.
Yeah.
But why did I do this to myself? Like it's just a college radio station. Why did you push yourself this hard?
Yeah.
But around the time I met my wife.
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, I got a family now. Let's be back. Yeah. No, next thing you know, I get a call from a friend in LA and he's like, hey buddy, why don't you come out here? And I'm back
in the mix.
Back on the sauce, man.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, so I come out here. And then this time, though, I can't be going out to, like, comedy clubs.
No, yeah.
I can't be going to comedy clubs. I've got a kid at home now.
Right.
There was a moment when I first got back here where we had to pay rent, and it was like, so this is the pain you probably like. This is the decision. You can continue to play your bass and do music and go out there and do comedy and stuff. Or you can go sell your bass at the pawn shop to cover rent for your wife and child.
Yeah.
And I chose that. I picked that lane.
For sure.
So, and then I got working at Universal Studios.
Oh, nice.
Where I worked in the big tower. I worked in the big, the executive building there on the lot.
Awesome.
And I just started writing. So that's actually where I got into story development. It was like
writing.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
And then I just started thinking again, like infrastructure and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then I went out and I started learning about every story paradigm that was out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I came across this one story paradigm called Dramatica. And it's based on a quadrant system. And around this time, I'm starting to get disgusted with Hollywood. Yeah, I just like, again, I put like, a hex on this place, a curse.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. This is horrible. I got a family.
Yeah.
And I go back to Colorado, and I actually worked for a Buddhist philosopher.
Whoa.
Right, who had a whole philosophical system called the integral philosophy. And it mirrored this story paradigm that I was looking at called Dramatica it was based on this little quadrant map with conceptual. So, again, like so I've got this like little thing where I'm like, I've got my personality theory.
Mm-hmm.
I discover this story structure, which is now reflecting what I've like the philosophical musings that I've come up with my personality theory. It's now like validating a lot.
Yeah.
And then I run into this Buddhist philosopher and call it back, and he turns out he's back in my home state, Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where he lives, up in the hills in Boulder.
Wow.
So I'm like, let's go. I tell my wife, let's go back home. I didn't tell her that I was going to try to work with the Buddhist philosopher. She thought I was insane. She was like, that's not a good reason to move across, to move back home, to quit your real good job here.
Yeah.
So she, but again, that philosophy it's called the integral philosophy again. And it had that same 4-quadrant pattern as this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was what's that movie, Close Encounters?
Yeah.
You ever seen that movie?
I think so. But
or like X-Files. That's a more recent.
It's like a coincidence too. It's like because you had this theory and then you met someone that has like a similar
right. Yeah. No.
theory.
Exactly. It's like here's this one person that does not know this person.
You don't know him at all.
They've basically come up with the same theory, but just like little. To me, it's like I'm some guy who's come up with like a little equation, and then I run into Leibniz, who's just discovered calculus,
right?
And then I also just heard Isaac Newton developed calculus, and I'm like going like, there's. Not that this is calculus,
right.
But to me,
it felt that way.
It felt that way at the time. I'm like, wow, this is like mind blowing.
Yeah.
And I went and I worked for the Buddhist philosopher. And at the same time, I was so disgusted by Hollywood. I decided I was going to do something good for the world. And I went and I started working for a bunch of nonprofits.
Okay.
Right?
Which, I mean, good ones, I hope, because those can get a little squirrely too sometimes.
They all got squirrely. Like every one of them. I worked at a hospice.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
I worked at I did a lot of temp work at that time, just trying to find a place, right, that I could work in. And yeah, I worked at a hospice, and all we did all day long was Medicare billing.
Oof.
I'm like, I get it. You need to have money.
Right.
You were helping dying people.
Right.
But man, it was a Medicare billing machine. Yeah. That's at the end of the day, that's kind of
exactly what it is. Yeah.
So like I said, I'm working for this Buddhist philosopher. They go, the team there goes, we're going to be launching like what was really a podcast network at the time. They didn't have the word for it. But it was a subscription service where we were going to be doing recorded interviews, video interviews, video content, comedy, music. It was like a podcast network.
Yeah.
So I basically worked for that, and they said we need people to do video content.
Well,
to work on it, and I'm like, okay.
I'm your guy.
I guess I get sucked back into it.
Yeah.
All right. And then around that time, I had a crisis in my marriage, right? And I loved working for that guy, but honestly, I mean, he was a brilliant man. He was not a very good boss, right? And you say don't meet your heroes, and yeah, I mean, well, maybe don't work for your heroes.
Yeah,
that's probably a better thing to say.
Definitely a better thing to say.
Don't work for your heroes.
Actually, that's actually right. What we were talking about before, that's more of it.
Yeah.
Meeting them is probably not a bad
heroes.
By and by.
Oh, this is cool.
But staying around them,
working for somebody who is just like driven, like
You're like, oh man.
So it was hard coming out of that, and then I had a marital crisis, and then I had a come to Jesus moment. Just at the time, that passion of like the faith-based filmmaking is blowing up.
Right.
And that was one of I watched I had actually gone and seen that movie, the Mel Gibson movie.
Okay.
Passion of the Christ. Right. Yes. And when I went in there, I was making fun of it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look, they gave us movie communion. And I was handing, things out to my wife and my friend who was there. I was like, here you go, body of Christ, here you go. And then I'd hand him big gulp. Here you go, the blood of Christ. Right. And then, so I watched this movie, though, and when the credits roll and the lights go up, I'm like, oh, man.
Blown away.
They tortured this man to death.
Yeah.
Right? So, long story short, I got back with my wife, and I had my come up story has been more of a come to Jesus moment. It's like, you asked for a come up story. I told you my come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. And then since then, I've just been working on like, what can I do to make more films like Passion of the Christ and what I call like the Mel Gibson space.
Yeah.
That's my passion.
That's where you're at.
But I was stuck in Colorado at the time.
Yeah.
And I finally came out because at this point I'm just working at a TV station. I'm working on movie projects, but it's hard to get stuff again. I got to learn the lesson again.
In Colorado.
In Colorado, Southern Colorado. There's no movie business there. There's no music industry there. You need to go back to the place that you've left 2 times before. You got to go back to LA.
Where it all happens.
Yeah. And this time when I came back to LA, I did the one thing that I had not, 3 times the charm. Mm-hmm. I did the one thing that I had not done before. I stayed here 5 years. And I'm going to tell you, that 5-year mark in LA, it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go to this group called Hollywood Prayer Network. And one of the things they say is, if you really want to do something in LA, it takes about 10 years. The first 5 years, you just got to figure out the freeway system.
Mm-hmm.
The next 5 years, you just got to figure out who's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I never got to that point.
Yeah.
I never got to that point.
You left before you can...
I left before I could figure out who was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So so this time I did, and then voila, I had movie credits.
Yeah.
I was a story development director. These are things that I wish I would have had like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
If I had just persevered.
Right.
So now I'm in a state where, like I said, that the other time I left because 9/11 got to me. It just shook me up.
Yeah, for sure.
At the end of the last 5 years is when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I had people like packing up and moving. We're going to Nashville.
Going to Austin.
We're going to Austin. We're going to Florida. It's so great here. There's no income tax. I'm like, no, but there's no California over there either.
There's no like industry.
Yeah, there's no industry over there.
And we're starting to see some of these things pop up, in Atlanta with like Tyler Perry. And I think even like I saw a thing with Cat Williams says he's now bought some like military base in like Mississippi or something. And he's building a studio. So obviously it's happening, but like the root of like where this thing lives is 100%
exactly.
Los Angeles.
The Netflix building is down in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that's their, are they spending $7 billion outside of Hollywood?
Right.
Yes. But the decisions are being made in that building.
Yeah.
The decisions are still being made in the Black Tower at Universal Studios.
Right.
They're still being made at the Disney lot.
Right.
Right, yeah. They're still being made,
And I think it's actually cool that we see like, a Tyler Perry, Cat Williams, like it's cool to see like, independent guys starting to like build their own thing, which is great. Because I always feel like, that's the one thing that's going to really, test Hollywood and like the studios in LA and all that stuff is competition. And I think it's healthy to have competition to say, okay, well, because if there's other studios in other parts of the country that are giving people, access to film movies for less, and less budget, and, then a lot of people are going to go that way, which I think what I would hope in turn would say, LA, how about we, bring some stuff down? Let's regulate, just bring things down here.
Right, yeah,
so we can get more stuff now filmed in LA,
What they're doing is they're, going back to but it's kind of my theme, I guess, of my come-up story is infrastructure. Right? LA has the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Right now, that infrastructure is under duress. Mm-hmm. It's under attack. Yeah, there is like, it's not getting the support that, say, I guess in France, when Netflix goes over there, they demand that, you need to have 20% of your profits go to creating content.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of ironic, or creating like content that's like French, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of ironic because the TV movies I worked on, where I got all my producer credits, those were actually paid for by French television stations.
Wow.
That were trying to create more American-like content.
Wow. That's
even at the end of the day, you want to make more French content, but the truth is the world loves American content.
Yes.
Because there is a value here.
Right.
And we export that. And so that's why I came back here. So my come up story is a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
It's a come back to LA story.
Yeah.
And it's at this point, it's like, how am I going to take it up a level?
Yeah.
How am I going to take it up a level?
Yeah. I mean, just from what where you've been and like, the rooms you've been in and like, the film space, like even for us, like, me and the guys, like, we're still aspiring to even get into some of these, rooms to like, okay, let's film or, whatever it is that we're going to be doing in the film space.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the infrastructure that needs to be built from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Here in LA. And I really think that there's an opportunity for like a resurgence of independent film here, because right now there's a ton of infrastructure that is not being utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be utilized, right? You just need cash.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's what I was going to say. Is it the money that normally just to rent these places? It's
just
astronomical.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if I go rent a big stage out there, it's huge, right? Yeah, but you have to have like, speaking of come up stories, nobody starts at the top.
No.
Steven Spielberg didn't start at the top.
No.
He didn't. Yeah.
Especially in that, right? In the visual effects space, and like, I mean, he's like one of the pioneers.
No, but how many people went to the Roger Corman film school?
Right. Film school, or like anything that like puts them a little bit ahead of someone that didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was just like, Roger Corman, right?
I'm not personally.
Roger Corman was just this independent producer, right, who was here in LA, right, and he just cranked out a bunch of movies. I think probably one of the most famous ones is the one. It was Jack Nicholson's first thing, was The Little Shop of Horrors. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, Francis Ford Coppola worked for him, and a lot of people just had him on their resume because that's where they got their feet wet. And he just would crank out.
Yeah.
He just was like, just cranking out movies. And he'd shoot a movie in 4 days.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't care if it's crap. It's out there. Right?
Yeah.
So, so that's why I say there's like Roger Corman Film School is like what Quentin Tarantino said. I don't go to film school. I went to films. Right, but he also kind of came up on that little bit of that it's the majors have the minors, right? And the farm teams.
Right.
Well, LA, that's what exists here in LA, is a huge farm team system.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know about it, right? Unless they watch their little indie movie, or even in distribution. Take a look at a company like A24.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they started off just like, let's do some horror movies. Let's just do little horror movies. Let's do on the cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
And now what happened? I think they did Anora, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they did the one movie that I saw them from like, perspective of like, oh, who's this? Like, I've never seen this. I think it was when I saw Uncut Gems.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Adam Sandler. I think that was the one that was like,
right, exactly.
I'm like, what is this? And then you go and you see like the style of movie they made, and you're like, what the hell did I just see? Like,
right,
that style is it's a very like erratic, anxiety-driven style.
Yeah,
film.
it's just
like,
independent film.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're in there, and then I guess you could say for a while, Netflix and the other streamers took over that space because they were just like,
they knew.
They were just spending so much money on everything.
Yeah,
that they basically
took over.
Yeah, they were green lighting series here and there that it'd be your favorite 5-episode series that 10 people watched, right?
Right.
And there was a lot of experimentation. Well, now after the strikes, they've pulled back on all that.
I'm sure, yeah.
So now they pulled back on their content. That's part of the reason that we're in just dire. They pulled back on their content, and then they've shipped a lot of it out of state. Out of state. So between those two factors, I was reading like 40% of I can't remember what exactly it was. 40% of studio space or 40% of post-production studios. It's there's this Facebook group called Crew Stories. Yeah, if you want to go just read like the sob stories of what's happening in LA.
Go there.
It's there. It's really heartbreaking what's happening. But at the same time, it's not Colorado.
Yeah, it's not Colorado.
Where there's no infrastructure. Nobody cares.
Right.
The infrastructure is here.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is here.
And so I want to get here. So basically, do you feel that right now is like right now is a good time for independent filmmaking to kind of, someone can kind of come in with a low budget and then, create something with a team that again is also low budget. Everyone just you're just kind of like shoestring budget basically. But do you think right now is a good time for independent filmmakers to like start making these kind of movies to then potentially get on like a Netflix or like, sell it to some sort of streaming services that's going to then, distribute it for you? Like is now a good time to do something like that?
Yeah, I think so, because like right now YouTube, I think that consulting firm, Deloitte Touche or whatever they're called, they just came out with a survey that said that Gen Z now majority watches YouTube. Well, guess what? I'm Gen X, and that's actually probably what I watch too.
Yeah, for sure.
I watch that more than
I watch YouTube more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now Gen Z, I notice, also watches a lot of classics. So I'll make references to Friends, Back to the Future, what's that? Mean Girls. They've all got their meme culture references. They 100%. 100% they know them. They watch these films.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, the new stuff they watch,
Yeah.
I guess they showed up for the Minecraft movie.
Yeah.
But really, it's because they played Minecraft, right? I remember my kids just playing hours and hours of Minecraft. They're too busy watching
other stuff.
And frankly, they're watching all kinds of stuff on YouTube.
Right.
Everything from Mr. Beast,
streamers,
Manosphere streamers,
Kai Cenat, and all those like
exactly.
Guys,
They're spending more time watching Joe Rogan than they are watching
movies.
Because
TV shows, and
you're going to probably start seeing more hybrid kind of content, which is what kind of like Mr. Beast is. He runs like he's got
a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's got like a podcast kind of thing, and he's got
like a TV show,
like a game show stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's like a whole like content creation machine, right? You know what I think of that this time in my life, and it's my pickup shot.
The pickup shot.
Yeah. I have a come up story, but it needs a pickup shot.
It needs a pickup shot. It needs a pickup shot.
It needs a
really good one.
It needs a really good pickup shot.
Yeah, just to get it in and complete the project.
Yeah, exactly. So like right now, so like I said, I leaned into the faith-based the Mel Gibson space.
Yeah.
It's like I always think of it like here's pure flicks on this side.
Yeah.
Which has become like just rom-coms for homeschool moms.
Yeah.
Well, I should start a rap career. Rom-coms for high school moms. Turn the flicks.
I'll tell you right now, that's not going to work.
Okay, all right, okay. I'm just, who would work with?
Who's that?
Oh, the homeschool moms watching Rims in the rom-com. No, yes, I think it'd work with.
I don't approve of this message.
Okay, all right. Then, and then on the other side, you got like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Where it's like I watch these shows and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
So you got this like, it's either place where crap is like a dirty word.
Yeah.
Or this other thing where there is no such thing as a dirty word. Everything. Yeah,
everything.
Yeah, it's like nudity. You have like one is like I said, like homeschool moms, and the other one is just like OnlyFans models.
Yeah.
So this is the world we're living in.
Yeah.
But there's this space in between, and I call it the Mel Gibson space.
Yeah.
Because that's Like that's every time he makes a movie, it's in that space.
Yeah.
It's got like a faith. Just because of who he is, it's got a faith element to it.
Right.
You know, but the quality is excellent.
Excellent.
You know, the performances are excellent. Everything, you know, that which is just a given. It should just be excellent.
Right.
But it's the kind of the movie that you can walk away from and it will be meme worthy.
Yeah.
For years to come.
Yeah.
Because it will have an impact on you, like what happened to me with, you know, Braveheart.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Patriot movie, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Signs or, you know.
Signs.
Signs, that was a good one. Or Passion of the Christ, where I was making jokes.
Yeah.
During the, you know.
Before the movie started.
Before the movie started.
And after you're crying.
Sitting in awe.
Yeah.
Stunned when the movie was done. That is a great film.
Yeah, so I want to get more into like, because there's other things too. So it seems like you've done like a lot of, you know, you've done a lot of roles like in the film. So like, you know, I guess I'll go from here because this is something that I guess I'm starting to get into a little bit is like the writing aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like what usually is your process when writing, you know, for a project? Like what, like, you know, story, you know, like what are the steps that you take to start writing for a project?
Okay, well, there's two. It always comes down to the idea, right? And then on one side, but then you also have to kind of project into the future and say, like, is this worth having an idea? Because it needs to be seen by the world in order for it to be, for it to come to fruition, right? So it's a little bit of a cart and a horse, though, in the movie industry, because sometimes what causes people to have the ideas is the distribution is already in place and they need content, right? But it always comes with the idea, right? And then, and so that's the first place is like, here's the idea, and how can we do it? So, like I said, if you've already got distribution set up, like I had at the company, then all the ideas that we had, we actually had to sit there and generate ideas. We had to be like, what's an idea that would fit with this distributor, with this audience? Because again, I'm thinking of like French housewives that want to watch American TV.
Yeah.
What movie would make them? I know.
Yeah.
The boyfriend comes over and tries to kill it. No, we already did that one. Wait, I have it. He's a fireman. Oh, great. Okay. So, so it always starts with the idea. Then what you have to do is they call it breaking the story, right? You have to go in and you have to develop a basic narrative structure, just a beginning, a middle, and end, right? And then, of course, because you're in business, you're always thinking of the green light process, right? Because somewhere, somebody's got to write a check for this to come to fruition. Otherwise, it's just a cute little hobby that you do, right? Or it's just a passion project, you know, like so many people who write scripts, and I'm writing a script about okay, that's great. And then...
Is there any funding behind that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a script. It's not a movie. It's a script.
How many M's come with that script?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the deal, is that you have, so you're constantly having to think of like this, like trajectory of like, of the green light process, right? And then you just have it, so you start with the idea, then you have to beat out the idea into something that's like an actual little beginning, middle, and end, right? And then you have to turn around and then beat that story out into, you constantly having to like thresh it out. That's where the story, like like that Dramatica that I use. Although I use all kinds of story engines, because you need to, especially when the idea is like, it's a little bit more utilitarian.
Yeah.
You're like, I still got to make a good movie. I got to I don't want to suck, you know?
I guess that's one thing too for me, because it's like when you're in the writing process and you're starting to like flesh out the story,
right?
That's like the one thing of like, man, like you have the general, I guess, idea of what the movie is about.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, I guess to go even deeper, it's like even like per scene, you know, like
right, yeah.
How do you get to that part now where you've had the idea, you know, but now it's like each scene, this is what we're gonna, you know, do.
Right. This is actually a Robert McKee. If you ever read his book Story, this is where he's really effective, because he clearly sees, like, his definition of story is it's a bunch of events that happen in a sequence, right? And they have like purpose to each other. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But it's not just a bunch of random events.
No.
It's like a series of events that add one onto each other. If you've ever heard like the South Park guys, they've got their little thing called So Ben.
I've not heard of.
You might have heard that.
I'm sure.
Or
Yeah,
you heard of the story clock.
Yeah.
Each of those things, it's just always like the story needs to progress. It needs to build on top of each other, even if it's a weird movie.
Right.
It still has to have some kind of progression. Otherwise, why am I sitting here watching it? Right. It's kind of like it's a 7-course meal.
Right.
So the other thing he talks about is that development process usually has 3 aspects. I believe he calls it inspiration, right? Imagination, he calls it, which is just now I'm like, hey, what if there's like some monkeys on a planet and they're like in the future, okay? And then you're just like coming up, let your imagination run wild. Then there's memory, right? Then you start drawing from your own personal experience. This is where it really becomes personal. So even when we were writing those independent TV movies for, like Lifetime, I still had to rely on memories.
Right.
I still had to go like, it was helpful that I was married and that, I'd be like, there was this time when my wife and blah, blah, or, I had a cousin who blah, 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 and the producer I was working for, he had his children through IVF. So I got to tell you, IVF always came up somewhere in the story stream. He was like, hey, is this where we could do like an IVF story? Yeah. Right, yeah. So there's memory. So you bring your personal experience. This is what humanizes it and what brings the human condition in. Then the third part is research, right? So like right now, I'm doing the Chloe Cole movie. It's something that's already out there, right? So one of the things of the research I have to do is I have to hang out with Chloe. I've got to talk to Chloe. I've got to write down things about Chloe's right. I've got to do the research. Then I've got to research all these other things about gender affirming care. I got to research. You'll end up researching laws. I did I worked on a film a script development project a couple of years ago. That was also a biopic, and part of it was a courtroom battle. I landed up reading hundreds of pages of depositions. Wow. Court transcripts. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Of course, while I'm reading court transcripts, I'm like, oh wait, that's good dialogue. Yeah. Cut and paste.
That's hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's actually from like the dialogue from the.
It's actual right. It's like life has some of the best dialogue. So wow. So right, so those are the 3 things that he says are the ticket, and I find that in my experience are exactly. It's like imagination. That's just like, that's what makes it. That's what makes it new and fresh and interesting, novel. The memory, which is the
personal experience.
That's the personal experience you're bringing in. That's what humanizes it, brings the human condition, and then research. That's what makes it believable. Yeah. Right. So, if I'm writing just like a Lifetime movie, okay, I'm coming like, okay, it's her gym instructor. She falls in love with her gym instructor and he's trying to kill her, or is he, right? I don't know. Yeah. Right. So that's imagination. And then I'll say like, well, let me actually like find out how a gym instructor could kill somebody. Let's say, how much force would it take for somebody to okay.
So there's actual like the research being done.
Right, on that. And then I'm watching, then I'm thinking like, hey, my sister dated a guy. He was like a health coach and he was always like really pumped. Why don't we base the character on that guy, right? So right. So but like I said, even when I'm doing something that's more personal and more powerful to me, as the Chloe Cole movie, one of the things I told you, I have a little bit of a gender journey. So I'm also bringing some of
your personal experience.
Yeah. So I brought that because that was part of my healing, my gender dysphoria. Yeah. Was getting in touch with my little Emilio. Yeah. Yeah. Who had a lot of shame about being a boy. Right. Right. Yeah. And so, I got in touch with that. Right. Put that human condition, but then there's also the research, again, I'm like having to research things. So, but that's the kind of thing that that I have, that research is being pulled in. I'm bringing a memory, right? But I'm also bringing an idea. We just had this idea of like, a little narrative and a premise setup.
Yeah.
So
I would say, and then to piggyback off that, have you been in like a director role? Would you say in your career?
Yeah, I just directed that.
Okay, so
I directed web series. When I was at the TV station, I directed.
That was directing. What do you feel like? Because I wanted to go from like directing, so writing, directing, and then I think I want to end up a producer.
Right.
Just to get really in the weeds of that. But as a director, what are some of the key things that you feel like a good director needs?
Okay, this is how I see it as, I don't know if this was something that was told to me or something I just kind of figured out. Okay. So a producer is responsible for developing and delivering the project. That's what they are. Or they're really just responsible for delivering the project.
Okay.
But that can include making sure there's a script, right? Making sure there's a distribution deal, making sure there's financing, making sure the production goes well, making sure, when the actress has a meltdown, that she's not going to sue, or that she's going to actually be taken care of. Producing encompasses all, like the whole aspect of getting the thing done, which is why the best picture Oscar goes to producers, right? And also why they limit it to 4, because you can have a whole bunch of producers on a project that did a little here, and here.
Everyone added.
But they give it to the producers that really were like they're from soup to nuts, right? A to Z, right? So I know you wanted to end it, but
that's fine.
You got to start there.
Explain it how you need to,
because then you start boiling down to the different roles, right? So as like a story development person, right? It was my job and when I put that hat on, I could also be a producer, right? But I could also just be the story development guy that makes sure that the script gets to a point where it will get greenlit. And then I'll come in at different parts to just make sure that the story is still being on track, right?
Okay.
But they call that process shepherding, where you get this, you get it from idea, from concept to green light. Because you're trying to make sure you're advocating for the script, you're challenging it. Even if you're writing it, you are the person who is also making sure that it's fitting into the bigger structure, into the bigger workflow. So, and then there's pre-production. Okay, the pre-production part of it is all the roles getting ready in pre-production. It's in a way it's part of production, because what you're getting to do, you're getting ready to have a successful production, and the director is really the person who leads the production, right? Because they're responsible for one thing. They're responsible for creating footage. That's what they're responsible for, really. So when the day is done, right, and they call wrap on the project, there's supposed to be enough footage there
to create
that it can go into an edit, right? So that's
right.
If the director doesn't do his job or her job, the editor will be one of those little angry gnome editors who yell at the screen and say, "I could have done a better job."
Yeah, right.
And then of course there's the pickup shot, which helps that it's just let's go create some more footage. So you really have it's really about the footage.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the development person says, this is the kind of they come up with the script. This is the blueprint for the footage. Then pre-production says, this is the blueprint, this is the plan, the production plan to get the footage. The director, who's in charge there, says he's responsible for getting footage. Okay? If he gets a great performance and it's not on camera,
that's it.
Failed. If got enough of a performance on camera that you can fix it in post, brilliant.
You're good.
Good. You're good. We're good.
You did your job.
We're good. You did your job.
Yeah.
Right? Now the editor is the one that puts the footage together. Any film project needs, you don't need a director necessarily. You don't need a development person. But you always need an editor. Because even if it's just somebody taking a long piece of footage and saying, here's the in and here's the out, that's it.
Yeah.
They're the one, they're like the core piece, actually, because they're the one that determine how the footage will go. Now, the producer, obviously,
everyone gets involved,
has control. The director might have control. A lot of times you'll have the director shoots and they're done.
Wow.
Or maybe the editor does an editor's cut, the director goes in and does a director's cut, and then the editor's gone. They've moved on. They'll move on to, sometimes they don't like to edit.
Wow.
Sometimes they don't want to be a part of that, especially, like if they're shooting, like if they're a gun for hire,
Right.
They're just like, I got my paycheck,
And that's that.
No, even Spielberg. There's a famous story about Steven Spielberg, at the end of Jurassic Park. He was supposedly, he was just kind of cooked. He was like, yeah, this is a good movie, but I want to go shoot Schindler's List. That's the movie I want to make. That's the movie that speaks to me.
Yeah.
So when they came to the end of Jurassic Park, my understanding is they did not have an actual ending.
Oh, wow.
Right. And Steven Spielberg said, well, let's, what do we have? What do we own? Right? Like what's in the production plan that wasn't in that we could use to compensate for the script?
Yeah.
Right? Because that happens all the time. You write a great script, doesn't mean you can shoot that script, right?
Yeah.
So people were like, well, we own the animations, we own this and that. And they were like, okay, how about, and then they came up with the ending where the T-Rex, and it seems a little, I tell you, it seems a little random.
Yeah.
But I will say it does work in the end because the theme of that movie is chaos.
Right.
And so it's the chaos of the whole system that actually saves them.
Yeah.
So in a way, I used to dunk on that movie a lot because it seemed like a real, don't ever do a Deus Ex Machina where you have a T-Rex show up and kill the bad dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But for that movie, I think it did work because when I watch it, the proof is in the pudding. Hey, I like that.
Everyone
ending,
loved it. Yeah.
But I think it works because it works in the whole framework of the theme, which is, again, it's chaos. That's Jeff Goldblum's character. I always bring up the chaos card.
Like, loved him in that.
It's not going to go as you say.
Yeah.
Just go. Nature finds a way.
I love him.
Right? Yeah. Well, nature found a way. Right?
Yeah.
All right. But the thing is, even in the movie making thing, there was a part of the beauty of it. There was a chaos where they were like, "What's here?"
Yeah.
Steven is wanting to go shoot.
He's done.
Right. And he's done, right? And so they went and they
finished it off.
They finished he was not really involved he was not involved in post like he was involved in the post on Schindler's List.
Of course, yeah.
Because that's where his heart was.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. I guess
he was a producer still.
For sure. Right, he still had some say in that. I think, where I want to kind of like maybe close out is actually a little bit more on the editing.
Yeah.
Because that is mostly like what I've allowed us, the team, the guys, like we'll film a bunch of stuff, we'll get content, for artists, for company, for whatever it is that we're doing. And then it comes down to the editing. And it's like, so what are some good, tips that you would say editors should kind of keep in mind when editing? Either in like an independent situation or in like a big collaborative situation, like what makes a good editor on a project?
Music.
Yeah.
Because film, the cinematic art, so I make sure I include everything, including YouTube.
Yeah.
They operate in visual space and time. So you're basically using images. It's like visual music, right? So there's a book out there called Visual Storytelling by Bruce Block. I know when I read that book, my editing game
stepped up,
totally changed.
Wow.
Because I started thinking of the visual components like how I thought of musical components. So there's like, there's scales because different shapes. When you're a painter, you're basically doing that same thing. You're like you have a deep understanding of shapes and tones and color and composition and placement. And so when you're doing that, you've got to think of it like it's music because it's like a painting with music because it's music video.
Yeah,
that's why music video is such an art form in and of itself.
Right.
Is because it's straight up music and the visuals don't have to be tied down to a definite narrative like beginning, middle,
exactly,
and
which I think is some of the great music videos I've ever seen. Almost like some of them might not even had anything to do with what the song was like saying. It was just like a visual piece, and it's like, how did that just work? Like, because it's like visual, it's like whatever they're throwing at you, but the music's like the underlying thing that like is driving the video.
Yeah, I think of like we'll take the classic Single Ladies, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, why is that popping? When I think of a music video, why does that one pop into my head?
Yeah.
Because they did some basic, they played some basic dynamics.
Yeah.
It was really bright.
Yeah.
And then it was dark.
Yeah.
It was bright. And then it was dark.
Yeah.
Then they had like a nice little composition of 3, right? They had like the 3 composition, right? Now they're also like moving. Like the movements are actual, like dance is also like, it's like physical music, right? Because it's very rhythmic, very controlled. It's very like, you see that in commercials even. I know it's that when I really got into that one is when I worked at the TV station and we were just pumping out commercials all the time.
Yeah.
And we only had 30 seconds to tell a story.
Oh, yeah.
Or 15 seconds.
Which is what a lot of people now on social media are dealing with, like whether it's an artist that's getting a song out or, someone who's just promoting something. It's literally like, do not make this Instagram reel more than 30 seconds. Just off the attention span, because people are not even going to stay tuned that long.
Yeah, exactly.
So keep it tight, keep it short, get to the point.
Right, exactly. Because there's only.
But make it interesting.
No, there's only so much space. Like people, because the medium is locked down in time. People only have so many years to watch content. They can't watch it all, right?
Right.
So what I realized is that commercials are musical theater. Right? The way that people need to move in commercials, the way that the images need to move, the way that they deliver lines.
Yeah.
You can't have like a, Stella Adler type performance in a commercial.
Yeah.
Unless you're making fun of it and also like cutting it down.
Yeah.
Even when Saturday Night Live makes fun of a commercial,
right?
They have to roll it out to 3 minutes to really give it the breathing room.
Right.
But every commercial, if you start looking at commercials and go like, oh, how's that different than a music video or a musical, right? Really, because it's just the timing has to be precise.
Perfect.
Right. So that's, I would say, is the number one thing you have to have in editing.
Yeah.
Is just like, that's why now you can have all these jump cuts and old time editors were like, you can't do a jump cut. It's like, yeah, but why are people willing to watch it?
Yeah.
It's because, it's because one, the image is not like going from here. It's not too jerky, but they're listening to the rhythm of the person's voice, right? And it's actually fixing the rhythm of the person's voice,
right?
So that you're not getting
you're not getting lost in it. Yeah,
you're not, and then. No, you're getting them speaking in a way that sounds very fluid.
Yeah.
And, and interesting. Right?
Yeah.
And it's taking out all the little breaths that you don't need to hear.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that's why. But you can also like go overboard. If you jump cutting every word.
Yeah.
It's like,
crazy.
What is this? It's like one of those little hostage notes you get where the letters are all cut out, like it's
which is cool to do in like little pieces, but not like a whole,
exactly
30 seconds.
You can read a whole novel.
It's like
made out of
disclaimers. Like if you have epilepsy or whatever, you probably should not be watching this.
Right, yeah, exactly. So that's the one thing is, and then the second thing is the art of montage. Right, You're building meaning. You got to think of these as like it's an alphabet. There's a cinematic language.
Yeah.
And you have to say that they're like, this was the Soviets, when they discovered filmmaking, they discovered that it was an amazing tool to drive narratives and push propaganda.
Of course.
So they took a very scientific approach and they started doing all these experiments. And I think it was Kulikov. No, what's that? I always get these Russian names wrong.
Yeah.
Kulishkov.
Yeah.
He did this one where he took an image of a man, just an old man, just staring into the camera, right? And then he intercut with three different images. Depending on where the story is told, the images change up, but it's usually a bowl of soup. So it was his face and then a bowl of soup. Then it was his face. The second edit was his face and some children. And then his face in like a graveyard or something. So then they asked, what do you think the guy is thinking? And people would say, well, if it was a bowl of soup, he must be hungry. If it was the children, he's watching the children. He's happy, right? Well, you just told me he was hungry, right? So the other thing was, now he's looking at a grave. Oh, he's sad. He's missing somebody who died. No, he's not. He's just
thinking about him dying.
He's like looking into the camera.
Yeah,
like he's like literally
true,
all he cares about. Right. So that's what I realized is really does all come down to the footage. When they say everything is deceptive, and when they go, oh, that was deceptively edited, it's like, you could say that about every single edit out there
ever made, right?
Because every edit, like I said, even if you're saying like picking the in and the out, that's all you're doing is one cut. You are making a narrative choice as to what's the beginning,
absolutely,
what's the middle, what's the end. What is the message you're trying to send?
Yeah,
because just like with the Soviet experiment, what two little pieces of information are you putting together so that the audience will draw their own conclusions?
Right.
So that's the art of editing, montage. Now, again, what makes it really go good is if it's musical. You can have a good musical edit, and it can just be like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
But when you start putting that montage in there, right, it's like when you have a beautiful melody, but now you have an incredible like lyric in there as well that now is making plain the story. Right.
That's pretty awesome I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, those two things.
Those are two. That's
those two things will change your editing game.
I would say, last question of the day. This is actually something that I kind of want to let, some of the people know, especially if you're like, indie filmmakers and like getting, wanting to start to like do things on their own. If I told you that I had to make a movie, I would say I'm going to use a movie as an example because I could go, short or you know what? Let's do short because movie is a bigger thing. So let's say short.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to make a short film, could you make one entirely for free?
Well, I mean, theoretically, you can't make it entirely for free because you need things, you need resources, But yeah, people do make short films all the day long. If you go to TikTok, and you go to, because this is what you absolutely need for something that's really good, which is why two guys sitting on a couch in LA will often make better entertainment on their little YouTube channel than what I can pick up off of Hulu. Yeah. Right? Because a good idea. Good idea. Good little story, right? That speaks to me, right? So, there's this little thing that's so funny. It popped in my head the moment I said it. It's the guy, he drives up to a prostitute and he goes, and it says, what if your wife, what if your prostitute actually helped with your wife problems? And he goes up and he goes, I just need somebody to agree with me on something. She goes, that's going to be $100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here. She goes, I don't want to go to the, you know,
I don't want to go to your parents' house.
I don't want to go to your parents' house this weekend. And she's like, okay, baby, whatever you want. He goes, oh, that was so good. He drives off.
He won.
Right.
He won the battle.
There's 5 lines.
Yeah, it was awesome.
5 lines.
Very funny.
That was a short film in 5 lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes I way overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Right? And when I see that kind of stuff, it's a reminder. These guys, what did they have? No, did it cost money? Yeah, they took a cell phone.
Yeah.
You needed a car, right? You needed a couple of people standing there.
Mm-hmm.
You needed some light, right? But you can get anything for free. In the indie world, you realize that, I like to say, you can pay, like paying for people. You can pay people 3 ways. You can pay them with actual, like, material compensation, you know. But, you know, for in the indie world, that means sometimes deferred payment. When we make money, I'll pay you something.
Take care of you.
Right, yeah. So now if they're accepting deferred payment, there's probably another way that they're getting paid immediately, which is experience. They're having an experience. They're either getting experience in front of the camera or acting experience, something for their resume. Some people, though, here's a common thing, like, you know, some of these crowd funds, people will actually pay you to be in the movie.
Wow.
Right? Or when they say, hey, we need a bunch of extras. It's non-paid, but they know this is going to be fun. They're not thinking about the extras that show up aren't thinking about their movie career. They're just thinking, hey, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's a cool little
story. Part of something. Yeah.
That's an experience.
Yeah.
Right? The third way you can pay people is passion. Right, yeah. Is, you know, that's how nonprofits basically operate. That's why they have volunteers get paid with passion.
Right.
Right, yeah. Because I'm showing up here, I'm doing something meaningful, I'm doing something. That's why you know, like, if you have a short film that's a passion project, yeah, they'll probably all work for free. Now, are they going to work for free all for, you know,
for the rest
21
of
days?
Yeah.
No, you could probably do a short film.
Right.
You couldn't do a feature film that way.
Right.
Right, yeah. So you could absolutely do short films. That's what, actually, 48-hour film festivals. Look them up. Short film, 48 hours, 168 hour film festival.
Wow.
72-hour film festival, 24-hour film festivals. That will answer your question. Can you make a short film for free? Yes, because people are usually getting paid one of those 3 ways, and most of the time they're not getting any kind of the compensation is 0. They're doing it for the love of it, the fun of it. They're wanting to get experience doing it, and it's fun. It's a passion project. They're working with their friends. They're working with their colleagues. They're doing something experimental. You know, just even the pressure of just having that clock ticking. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is you know, that's an adrenaline rush when you're that 23, 59 minutes, and you're just like, it's uploaded. Yeah, we did it. Right. Yeah.
That's such a
right. So yeah, could you do a short film for that? Yeah. Absolutely. You know, borrow somebody's house.
Yeah.
Borrow somebody's camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made several short films with Andy Dick's camera.
Oh.
It was he lent me his Super 8, huge Super 8 camera that had all the trimmings on it. Yeah, I made a few short films of that. Thank you, Andy Dick.
Wow, that's a good.
Thank you. Yeah, he was my first producer.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is a great way to end this one because just a great story, and I thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah.
Is there any kind of like socials or website or anything that you want to promote so people can find you or if they want to work or?
Well, like I said, if you go to I'm working on the Chloe Cole movie right now. It's a domain that I use to point at whatever I'm working on with the Chloe Cole movie. But it's yougreenlightit.com.
You greenlight it?
You greenlight it because remember I said I had an idea.
Right.
But it's got to get greenlit. So it's going to be up to the people in the seats. You to greenlight it. Okay. So that's you greenlight it. Yougreenlightit.com.
Thank you guys so much for this episode of the Beezy Show. As you guys know, like, subscribe, comment. You already know what to do. Hit the like button. And let's get this pod going, guys. I need some help. Let's get it, let's get this thing to more people. So appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.